Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the 235-member Michigan Marching Band. Band, take the field. Under the direction of Professor Jamie L. Nix, the M Fanfare. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the two.
Hey, what's going on, guys? I thought I hit pause and then it wants to keep going. That's Apple iTunes. Fix my hat here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. First of all, please like the stream, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't. That also goes for those of you who are watching on the playback. So today is June 25th, 2021. We're almost at July. Let's see. Let me pull this up. Michigan. Oh. So we're almost to July. Kickoff is on September 4th. Let me show it. Kickoff is September 4th. The Wolverines are hosting Western Michigan. So that means we are about 2 months away from the 2021 season. Let's see who's in here. Let's see. Wolf says, okay, let's get into it. Buckeye Alex is showing his support for the team down south. Herbert Lewis is here. And so, guys, today we're going to talk about, some of you guys have wanted to talk about the Bo Schembechler scandal. I haven't talked about it much. I did read one article in one of my Let's Catch Up on the Latest News live streams. But I decided that after some of the guys in my circle were sending articles around in our text group, I said, okay, let's look at it head on and discuss it. So I think what I'm going to do is I found an article by none other than Mr. Where is he? There he is. John U. Bacon on Twitter. I follow John on my first Twitter account. And John wrote a piece, what I would consider to be a balanced piece on what's happening. And you know that balance is my style. Some of you guys want to come in and pile on and, they should get rid of the statue. Michigan sucks. We beat you guys all the time. My style, balance. Balance. I think balance is the key. Grab my football here. So I think I'm going to read John U. Bacon's write-up of this. I might squeeze in one more article. But let's see. It's Friday. It's been a long work week. The day job. It just sucks your energy out. And I'm about ready to go out to grab something to eat and go to happy hour and get some red wine. So let's jump in. So a couple of announcements here. I have talking points for this one. So guys, I think I'm gonna take a little break in August in terms of making new content. I came to the realization, I was in the gym maybe 2 or 3 days ago, and a lot of people have been calling me, and I haven't been good about returning calls, and I haven't been good about checking up on certain relatives. I'll just leave it at that. And I came to the realization, I think I'm going to take a short break in August before the football season starts. I will still waterfall content. I think I have some pre-records that I definitely want to do. I was going back looking through my records, and I think that someone actually asked me which game that I think was better, the 2006 Michigan-Ohio State game or the 2016 game. So I think I'm going to shoot pre-records on that, but I think, I'm going to take a little hiatus because it's good to do so, and I'm feeling just a little bit burnt out from everything right now because this isn't my only channel. I wanted to announce that for those of you who are interested, tomorrow I'm going to host a second open basketball hangout here. The NBA playoffs are in the conference final round. The finals are upon us, and I just thought it'd be cool to have to open it up. And the last one was pretty popular, so we're gonna do another one tomorrow. And I'm gonna read some or probably give an update on where the conference finals are, and then maybe give some other news. Like I think Detroit got the number one lottery pick this year, and then I'm just going to let it just go. Guys can come in and talk about who the GOAT is. Guys can give their prediction on who they think is going to win the Larry O'Brien Trophy and those kinds of things. So for those of you who are interested in that, I'm going to do that tomorrow. I see some more. Kareem, you're such a sweetheart. Thank you for that super chat. Everyone, the super chat is live. If you want to make throw something in the tip jar the way Kareem Henry just did, I appreciate her so much. That's there. And of course, my other information is below this stream. You're not under any pressure to donate. And I want to thank Dre. Dre donated in the last stream, so I want to shout him out as well. So you guys are never under any pressure to donate. That's always welcome. But I realize, the crowds on the different channels are different. And some crowds donate more than others, but I appreciate the viewership and the support most of all. Just please, if you're coming in, please hit the like. I think those are all of my announcements. If you guys have ideas of content of Michigan or Ohio State or Big Ten content that you want me to do, you guys can contact me here. All this is on the channel as well. Okay, so guys, I'm going to start this. Since this stream is dealing with the patriarch of the Michigan football program, one Mr. Glenn. Oh, geez, I thought I had it queued up. Give me 1 second here. I thought I had the thumbnail image. I uploaded all the other images for this. There it is. Since this stream is in large part going to involve the patriarch of our program, Mr. Glenn Bo Schembechler, I'm going to start with the Michigan Man poem, which was donated to me by one Mr. Herbert Lewis, who's there in the chat, and over on his channel and David Lorenzo Glover's channel, The Controversial Counselor, Herb is known as the Big Bad Wolf because Herb brings the heat. In whichever topic he addresses, he brings the heat. So Herb shared the Michigan Man poem. So I'm going to read the Michigan Man poem, which is going to set this discussion up. So the Michigan Man poem, and I know Wolf 58 loves the poem so much. So there. He grabs his chipped painted helmet, lunchbox, and hits the sled. That's a Michigan man. The glitz and glamour is the muddy, grass-stained uniform he takes off after a game. That's a Michigan man. The Saturday autumn sun and leaving opponents blue after a loss is the aim of a Michigan man. His only mission, you guys are going to laugh at this, his only mission, a win. A loss is unacceptable. That's a Michigan man. He did what Bo knows. He did as Bo coached. That's a Michigan man. He despises the sousaphone. The state of Ohio was non-existent. That's a Michigan man. He invests in silver, yet dislikes the colors because it's close to gray. Scarlet is the name of a fictitious character that's gone with the wind. That's a Michigan man. The only horseshoe he acknowledges is the one on the hoof of a racehorse. That's a Michigan man. So, the next time someone asks you what a man is, you could answer in a myriad of ways, including, I don't know. However, when someone asks you what is a Michigan man, your reply should be accountable. That's a Michigan man. I think that's going to be a little controversial based upon what we're going to talk about today. So thank you again, Herb, for supplying that. If I paused, I copied and pasted it from Instant Messenger into Word. So some of the indentations were off. So that's the Michigan man poem. So thank you, Corrine Henry, for the super chat. She says, are you going to do Olympic content? Well, maybe. I've never been a big Olympics guy, but depending upon what the events are, maybe I will. Depending upon who's competing, maybe I will. I am a Simone Biles fan, so we'll see. And then Buckeye Alex, thank you for the super chat. Take 20 for a mental break. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate that. I think, let's see, Wolf 58, yes, I did. He canceled the Alabama trip. Dr. Dunbar, you didn't answer the question. I think I just did. Herb gave his, okay. And then speaking of wolves, Wolf 58 on the Michigan Man poem and his Harbaugh clown avatar there says, Michigan Man, oh boy, here we go again. You know, it just, Wolf 58, it just fits with the channel. So the Michigan Man poem will be a mainstay of the channel. Okay. What else is on my to-do list here? So guys, let's start with a, before I read the John U. Bacon article, let's start with a brief history of Bo. So as you all know, Glenn Bo Schembechler, who is the subject of this live stream, is arguably the face of the Michigan program. I'm going to bring up his record here. I'm going to bring up his record here so we can look at it. Up until now, up until these recent events, very well respected, a legendary figure, and very much revered in Ann Arbor, in the state of Michigan, and probably by his peers around the country. So I think Bo was originally from Ohio. I should know that by heart. I think it's spelled out here in one of John U. Bacon's books. I had this book, Bo's Lasting Lessons. Okay, so I have a bunch of John U. Bacon's books, and there are a number of quotes in this book, and one I realized I actually live by because in my current job, I am the chairperson right now for our overall toxicology group, and I was the chairperson for our cancer group several times over the last couple of years. And an important quote in this book that Bo lived by was, early is on time. So I actually took a bunch of quotes from this book, threw them down on a PowerPoint slide and posted those inside my cubicle. And there's a lot of good stuff in here, but that early is on time quote, I always, as the chairperson of these groups, I always wanted to get to the meetings early, just to get myself ready. But also as the leader of those groups, I always wanted to get there early, just just to set a good example and set precedents. So Bo's record, you can see that he coached at, and actually I think Bo was in Columbus, helping Woody coach Ohio State for a little while. Okay. And then Bo moved on to Miami of Ohio. He was there from 1963 until 1968. Let's see. I'm not going to read over every season in terms of record. And then he arrived in Ann Arbor in 1969, and he stayed at Ann Arbor for 20 years. So he came in 1969, and he retired in 1989. So he was there for 20 years. He saw a lot of coaches and players come and go. He coached a lot of players. He sent a bunch of players to the NFL. And as described in the Michigan football lore, many of those players went on to start careers in the business world and in other areas. One of the criticisms of Bo, this was way before the BCS. This is way before the college football playoff. And so in those days, the coaches would vote on who the national champion would be. And the big thing back in those days was actually going to the bowl games. And so for the Big Ten teams, the big thing was actually going to the Rose Bowl. And one of the knocks on Bo's legacy and his record, again, prior to this thing, was that he didn't have a winning record in the bowl games. So if you take a look at this here, if you look at all those Rose Bowls, you have one Orange Bowl, one Gator Bowl. You see a whole bunch of losses there in the bowl games, which is surprising. As much as revered as he is, those are a lot of bowl losses. So you see. Let's see, of all those bowl games, Bo only won, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So he won 5 out of 17. So he only won a third of his bowl games. Okay. And I don't think Bo ever won a national title. I don't think his teams were ever voted actually national champion. I'm going to read some of Wolf's comments here. Let's see. He says, Bo is from Barberton, Ohio, in the northeastern part of the state. And he also says that of all of the state of Michigan's winningest coaches came from or first coached in Ohio. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Let's see. And if you look at Bo's winning percentage, let's see, for his entire 27 years, his winning percentage is basically 78%. At Miami of Ohio, his winning percentage was 69%. You could round that up to 70. And then at Michigan, Bo's winning percentage was 77%. So he's pretty consistent. He's very consistent. And so that's significant because when you think about Joel Klatt from Fox Sports said this maybe 2 years ago, I think in the 2019 season where the Wolverines were struggling. Joel Klatt and many people have pointed out that Michigan traditionally is a 70% winning percentage team every year. And then they have those rare years where they jump up and they're really, really good. But 77% is the norm when the program is competitive. And I think Jimbo, prior to the COVID season, I think Jim's record, his winning percentage is about that. So some people were predicting Jim to come in and be the savior. A lot of people have been disappointed that he hasn't got us into college football playoff or even the Big Ten title game. I'm disappointed about that as well. But in terms of overall record, that's kind of the norm when the Michigan football program is competitive. Let me look at my notes here. Okay. So Bo is the face of the program in a number of ways. When you go to the games, and I intend to go back to a game this year. Hopefully the big house will be full, just like that. When you go to the games, while they play the music and you listen and you can see the marching band playing and those kinds of things, what they do is they play the team speech. And that's a part of the game experience at the big house. If you look in the football programs, I showed this. This is from the 2016 season. I shot a video on Wilton Spate I think it was one of my recent uploads. If you haven't seen it, please take a look at that. It needs some more likes. But in all the football programs, they list out all the Michigan coaches. So they list out Fritz Chrysler, Benny Osterban, Bump Elliott, Bo, Coach Moeller, Gary Moeller, Lloyd Carr, Rich Rodriguez, Brady Hoke, and Harbaugh. So the history aspect is important for the Michigan program. So that the line of coaches, the players that they coached, the games they played in, all that is a part of the aura and the mystique of the Michigan program, the Michigan football program over the years. What else? And there's a element of integrity that's associated with his face, and there's an element of integrity with the team speech. There's an element of teamwork and doing it right and being the leaders and the best and those kinds of things. All of that is associated with Bo Schembechler and his likeness. So you can imagine how much there is to lose from stripping his face away from everything. This banner right here, those who stay will be champions. I think Bo brought this to the program. So I'm saying all this to say that his face is synonymous with the Michigan football program. And I'm going to show you guys something here as well. We cleaned out our cubes at my 9-to-5, my federal job. And it just so happens that in my cube, I had this. So I have a Jim Harbaugh bobblehead, and I also have a Bo Schembechler bobblehead in my collection. And on the back of this bobblehead, it's all about, his history. And so I'm saying this to say that that history matters for the Michigan football program in terms of selling it, in terms of public perception, in terms of all that. The history of the program matters. His fingerprints are all over Ann Arbor and all over the athletic department. I'm going to read a comment here. I see some new people came in. If you're new coming in, please hit the like. Let's see. I see some discussion here between Herb and Wolf 58. Herb says yes. Only a split national championship with Nebraska in 1993. I believe no, it was 1997. Wolf 58 says Herb, no, they split the title in 1997 under Lloyd Carr. Yep, with Nebraska and Tom Osborne. Very controversial. Wolf 58 says 97 was as close to a national title as Michigan has come since the late 1940s. The Hood Toxicologist is here. Angela Main, thank you for coming through. For those of you who are new coming in, please hit the like. So Bo's fingerprints are all over everything. And I don't know if anyone knows this, but he also had an impact on the hardwood floor as well. Let me pull this picture up. There's a story behind Bo actually also influenced the coming of the Fab Five. So you might ask, well, how did Bo, who's the football coach, impact the coming of the Fab Five? Well, here's another book I have. This is the Fab Five. This was written by Mitch Albom. I don't think Mitch does a lot of sports stuff, but he wrote for the Detroit, I believe it's the Detroit Free Press. But this is the Fab Five, and this is actually chronicling the Fab Fives, how they came together and how they gradually went to the NBA at the University of Michigan in 1992. And so it turns out that that 1989 season, when they won the Final Four in Seattle, they started the season coached by Bill Frieder. And as they got closer to postseason play, Bill Frieder was shopping around, and one of the schools he was looking at going to coach at was Arizona State. Well, Bo, I don't know if you guys can see this, but yeah, there's the picture right there. There's Bo and Steve Fisher. Steve Fisher was an assistant on Bill Frieder's staff. And once Bo got wind of the fact that Bill Frieder was looking for another job, he fired him and promoted Steve Fisher to the head coach position of the basketball team. And Bo was quoted as saying that we have to have a Michigan man coaching my boys, coaching our boys. So that's how Steve Fisher got into that position. They won the national title. And as you know, years later, he recruited Chris Webber, Jalen Rose, Juwan Howard, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson. And that's how the Fab Five got there to the University of Michigan. I have another comment here. Trepper Cole says, will the value of Bo Schembechler memorabilia be affected by this scandal? Well, I think if his likeness gets removed from everything, absolutely. So my Bo Schembechler bobblehead might be worth some coin one day. If you're new coming in, please hit the like. Please hit the like. The engagement helps a lot. Let me look back at my talking points here. Let's see. So, guys, let's jump into the John U. Bacon article, because I think it summarizes everything. And John's commentary is much like mine. It's very, very balanced, which is why I enjoy reading his books, and which is why he is the official historian of the Michigan football program and Michigan sports. So I'm going to queue up this article and I'm going to read through it. I saw it on Twitter the other day. And I'm sure John's phone has probably been ringing off the hook as this whole thing has been going on, because John followed Bo around. John wrote this very flattering and affectionate book about Bo. So I'm sure people have been really, really calling him and saying, John, what do you think about all this? Let's see. There it is. Now, oh geez, this is a long piece. So I might have to, I will try to read the whole thing if you guys can be patient, but that's actually a long piece. And it's below the video as well if you want to read it for yourself, in case I can't get through the entire thing. But surprisingly, this whole thing has touched a lot of people. I haven't been paying as close attention to it, but I know Wolf, when I posted this in my community tab, I know Wolf said that this whole thing has been a little bit infuriating, quote unquote infuriating. So there are people on the outside of the Michigan program, like our buddy Mike Valenti here. I think he's been piling on. I can't stand to listen to this guy talk as much, because he always has bad things to say about Jim and the program. But it's touched a lot of people. So earlier on, our resident super fan, Abdul Gaines, he said something very, very surprising about this. And Abdul was a Michigan fan, and then he went over to Ohio State. But he did say, surprisingly, as far as Bo is concerned, there's no reason to take his name off buildings. Where's the evidence? And when I read that, I told you guys one of my all-time sports influences is Jim Rome, the Pimp in the Box, Van Smack, the leader of the Clones. He has a lot of famous drops on his show that he plays. One of my favorites is this Carl Lewis drop where Carl Lewis goes, "Uh-oh," because he butchered the national anthem. But I let out a big "uh-oh" when Abdul Gaines said that, because as you'll see, it's split. You have people who kind of want the university to get rid of Bo and get rid of his legacy. And surprisingly, well, no, not surprisingly, but you have a number of players and former coaches who have stepped up in defense of Bo. So it's very much a split thing. So Ward Manuel and the trustees and the president, the chancellors, they all have some hard decisions to make about what to do with this, because a part of the business is having Bo's face there. And John U. Bacon has stated numerous times that this is a business. And we all complain and get angry about what happens on the field, but the entire Michigan football program, the entire athletic department, is a business in itself. So let's take a look at this this article, this essay that John U. Bacon wrote. I will try to get through the whole thing. This is long. If not, then it's below. Buckeye Alex says, I think it's a bit ridiculous that we are trying to place 2021 values on people 30 years ago. With that being said, was he wrong? Possibly, but we will never know because he's not here to defend himself. You know what, Alex? That's a good point. I was thinking about when I was putting this together, I was thinking, what's the difference between this and what happened with Joe Pa down in Happy Valley? As many of you guys remember, oh geez, I'm looking at a picture of Elle Duncan from ESPN. Very beautiful woman. If you guys remember, and of course, I don't have my Joe Paterno picture queued up, but the whole Jerry Sandusky, Joe Paterno thing, that got pretty ugly down in Happy Valley, and Joe Paterno was still alive. I don't remember what exactly Joe Paterno said in response to everything Jerry Sandusky did, but Joe was at least alive to be able to give a statement about what happened, and Bo passed away in 2006, so he can't say what he was thinking or if he even knew what was happening. If you're new coming in, please like the stream. Every little bit of engagement helps. And the super chat is live, and my Cash App and PayPal are below this video as well. All right, let's see, where is it? Dr. Anderson, there it is. Okay. This is entitled Dr. Anderson's Abuse in U of M Athletics, What We Know and Don't Know. This was written by John U. Bacon. And I've met John in person several times. Good guy. He's a big fish. I think I did DM him on Twitter, maybe asking him if he'd come visit the channel. But again, John's a big fish. Why would he come to my channel? I missed the Sunday show with John and Jamie Morris. They stopped doing that, but that was a fun Sunday morning show. They would play the "I Can't Feel My Face" by The Weeknd to start it. That was always a fun show to listen to after the day after games. Okay, I am writing to address the tragedy of Dr. Robert Anderson's abuse of University of Michigan students and the many issues it has raised. If you're reading this, you probably already know, but in the interest of full disclosure, I co-authored Bo Schembechler's last book, Bo's Lasting Lessons, which was published in 2007, a year after he passed. I've spoken often about him, his career, and my deep respect for both. On that basis alone, you're free to discount what I have to say here, but I am not writing to defend or attack anyone, merely trying to get as close to the truth as I can. As you can imagine, for a number of reasons, that is not easy. See, he's a fair and balanced writer. That's how I would have written that. About 16 months ago, the University of Michigan revealed that Dr. Anderson, who served as a U of M physician from 1966 to 2003, had been accused of sexually abusing students. The university's Board of Regents, as distinct from the university itself, retained a preeminent law firm, Wilmer Hale, to spend a year researching and writing its report. The Regents gave the firm complete access to anything it wanted, no holds barred, without having to communicate with Michigan's central administrators before securing whatever it needed. In fact, Wilmer Hale was required to inform the Regents if anyone attempted to interfere. So 1966 to 2003. So that means he was with Bo. He was there when Bo got there. And that means he was there under Coach Moeller and also under Lloyd Carr. So there are other coaches who were there when this doctor was overseeing this thing, overseeing the students, the student athletes. Their search included interviews with more than 300 current and former patients and 200 current and former U of M employees, and reviews of tens of thousands of documents from the university's Bentley Historical Library. As the report's authors state, no restrictions were placed on our fact gathering, our analysis, or our independence. No one on the Board of Regents or at the University of Michigan has previewed the report or any drafts of it or suggested any content or revisions. In other words, no one at U of M interfered with Wilmer Hale's research or reporting. Last month, Wilmer Hale sent its 240-page report simultaneously to the university leadership and the Michigan Daily, the student newspaper. The report disclosed Anderson had sexually harassed, abused, and assaulted more than 800 students over the course of his career at the university health services, UHS, a campus clinic for Michigan students and staffers, where Anderson first practiced at Michigan, plus the medical school and the athletic department's clinic, often under the guise of routine physical exams. The most common form of misconduct patients described to us involved Dr. Anderson conducting sensitive examinations, i.e. hernia and or genital, prostate and or rectal, and breast and or pelvic examinations that they perceived as unnecessary, performed inappropriately, or both. Even when conducting a particular sensitive examination, may have been consistent with the standard of care at the time. Dr. Anderson regularly performed those examinations in grossly inappropriate ways. Let me take a look at YouTube to make sure this is going. As you guys know, my science channel got taken down because YouTube didn't like what I was talking about. So hopefully that doesn't happen midstream here. Looks like everything is still going. If you haven't, please like the stream. Please get those likes up. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Fortunately, this is not violating community guidelines. Wilmer Hale learned the complaints about Anderson, who had become director of University Health Services in 1968, were sufficient by 1979 for Anderson's supervisor, Thomas Easthope, to confront him about the abuse. According to Easthope's testimony, Anderson didn't deny any of it. Last year, Easthope initially told the investigators that he recalled firing Anderson on the spot, but the investigators said this was false. Mr. Easthope claimed to have confronted Dr. Anderson and fired him, but Mr. Easthope did not do so. While Easthope said he told his supervisor, Vice President for Student Services Henry Johnson, he ultimately acknowledged that he failed to notify the University Health Services, the U of M Medical School, the Ann Arbor Police, the Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office, or the state's Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs. In explaining why Easthope failed to notify the U of M Athletic Department, where Easthope knew Anderson also practiced part-time, Easthope testified that the athletic department was out of his sphere of influence and nothing that Easthope had any input about. Easthope concluded that Anderson's work in the athletic department was not something Easthope needed to be terribly concerned about. In short, assuming Easthope did tell Johnson, they both had the facts and the power needed to end Anderson's career, but both failed to do so. Easthope admitted he had other priorities. I had to move on. I had a lot of things going on every day. I can't explain it in any other way. As a result, the report states contemporaneous documentation reflects that Dr. Anderson, voluntarily resigned at UHS as UHS director effective January 1980, but he continued working at UHS as a senior physician with the title of Director of Athletic Medicine. Despite having heard about Dr. Anderson's misconduct, Mr. Easthope himself signed documentation related to Dr. Anderson's continued employment at UHS in January 1980 and approved a salary increase for him in or around August 1980. If Easthope and Johnson had done what they were supposed to do, even by the less stringent requirements of the era, Anderson's abuse would likely have stopped in 1979. Instead, their inaction allowed Anderson to transfer to the athletic department's new medical unit in 1981, where he worked for the next 18 years, returning to the medical school from 1999 to 2003 when he retired. I was at the school then. In a cruel irony, former athletic director Don Canham had set up one of the nation's first in-house medical units for student athletes to provide quicker, better care. It would have been reasonable to assume a doctor who had already worked at UHS and Michigan Medicine, as it's now called, for 15 years in good standing, which on paper Anderson had, would be a good choice to work in the new unit. Yet it was in that unit where many of the athletes Dr. Anderson treated started calling him, "Ooh, Doctor, drop your drawers." Come in with a cold, drop your drawers, one former U of M tennis player told me in a familiar refrain. Come in with a bad shoulder, drop your drawers. The university had another opportunity to take action against Anderson in 1996 when his application to Michigan Medicine required listing any lawsuits against him the previous 2 years. He disclosed a lawsuit from the year before, which alleged he had performed inappropriate breast, pelvic, and rectal examinations on a female patient, according to the report. There's no evidence that Michigan Medicine took any action, a colossal failure. Anderson retired in 2003 and died in 2008. I'm going to take a brief break here and see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Wolf 58 says, molestation and sexual assault have never been a value regardless of time period. Dick Woodism says, Bo, Carr, Moeller, Jimmy Snake Oil, they're all enablers. If you're new coming in, please like the stream. Abdul Gaines, our super fan, says, No reason to take down Bo's name. Where's the evidence? Accusations aren't equivalent to evidence, but in this leftist culture our nation is immersed in, they are viewed as the same. Wolf says we can disagree on if Bo knew of Dr. Anderson's abuse. We may never know the truth. Wolf 58 says, but one thing is not in dispute. Dr. Anderson abused young people for decades, all while under the employment and protection of U of M. Chaos Rain says, what's good, Dr. Dunbar? Thank you for coming through, Chaos Rain. Yeah, so from what I've read thus far, it seems like individuals in the entire health system, or some key individuals in the health system, knew what was going on, interestingly. Okay. I'm going to soldier on a little bit further. The survivors. Over the past year, I've talked with a couple dozen of Anderson's victims. Some were big-name athletes, including football players, others lesser-known competitors in every men's sport Michigan sponsors. Since I'm a sports writer, I focused on the athletic side of the story and did not talk with the hundreds of Anderson's victims at UHS or the medical school. But all of them carry the emotional scars of Dr. Anderson's abuse. I've heard numerous men, as tough as they come, reduced to tears while recounting the abuse, plus the confusion, the helplessness, not a feeling that comes often to people who had a history of excelling, and the anger it still generates many years after the fact. In other words, in the words of the report, Dr. Anderson's misconduct prompted some student athletes to quit their teams. It caused some students to question their sexuality. It caused some students to seek counseling. It affected some students' academics, including some who left the university, and it undoubtedly affected other students in a myriad of ways. The trauma that Dr. Anderson's misconduct caused persists today. At the time of the incidents, the stunned victims were often unable to specify exactly what was wrong about Dr. Anderson and frequently deferred to his medical authority. Many of Dr. Anderson's patients, many of Dr. Anderson's patients thought that something strange, odd, or unusual had occurred in the examination room, but they did not complain because they were unsure if what they had experienced was normal for adult medicine or elite university athletic programs. Patients generally gave Dr. Anderson the benefit of the doubt, trusting and deferring to his medical expertise. Some were too ashamed or embarrassed to share the details of their examinations with friends, authority figures, or family members. Others thought they would not be believed. I asked one of Anderson's victims why, when Dr. Anderson's abuse had become a running joke among many athletes, so few outside the athletic program had ever heard about it. Like most, I'd heard nothing until last year. He said, that's easy. We were embarrassed and ashamed, and probably most of us didn't even know what to call it, but we knew better than to expect anyone outside our locker room to understand. Even years later, this man was proven correct when people online and elsewhere questioned why Anderson's victims didn't just turn around and punch the doctor. Opinions which demonstrate both ignorance and callousness. As another survivor told me, once you speak publicly, you know the knuckleheads are coming after you. It took a tremendous amount of courage for these people to talk to the Wilmer Hill lawyers who produced the report, or call the hotline to tell their stories to the plaintiffs' class action lawyers. It took still more to come forward publicly, knowing the wide range of reactions that can follow. Former star tailback John Vaughn, for example, talked to the press last week about his abuse by Anderson. I was ruthlessly, repeatedly, and regularly raped by Dr. Robert Anderson at least 45 times. In a podcast, when he was asked when he realized Dr. Anderson's treatment wasn't normal, he said it was not until March 26th, 2020, 2 weeks before his 50th birthday, when he received an email from a teammate with an article on Dr. Anderson by Kim Kozlowski in the Detroit News. At this point, I'm in disbelief. I'm like, really? Then you start to think about your daily life at Michigan, which I hadn't done in 30 years. And I started talking to my friends and teammates, and I started listening to his story, and the story mimicked my story. Then we came to this realization. I was like, man, you know what? We've been a victim of sexual abuse and rape. It was very sobering. It was a very sobering time. And imagine realizing that at 50 years of age. If we don't know everything, we certainly know this much. Dr. Anderson did untold damage to hundreds of victims, and the university failed to stop it. The evidence is beyond overwhelming on both fronts. What's harder to determine is who knew what and when, and what they might have done or not done with the same level of confidence. Of course, on some level, those questions are academic, since we know no one stopped Anderson from abusing patients throughout his career. All right, I'm gonna take a look at the chat and see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Wolf58 says, but one thing is not in dispute. Dr. Anderson abused young people for decades, all while under the employment and protection of U of M. I think I read that one. I read that one too. Trevor Cole says, is anyone to blame for what happened during Dr. Anderson's tenure at Michigan? Will Michigan acknowledge publicly specific individuals who were in position to stop this, but did not? Wolf58 says, using their position of authority and relying on the naivete of their victims is a familiar tactic for sexual predators. Guys, give me 1 second here. I'm going to go grab my bottle of water. Reading dries your mouth out. Hey guys, thank you for those of you who are hanging on for this one. I'm going to try to soldier through, or as they say in the manosphere, I'm going to try to alpha my way through this piece, and then I'll wrap the stream up because I want to get to my restaurant before it closes. It closes at 9. So take a swig of my water. So this guy retired. Well, I was still a graduate student, and I was over at the medical campus. So I might have crossed paths with this guy. And for those of you who don't know, I actually had a knee surgery when I was at U of M. The doctor was John Carpenter. He was a surgeon. Did a really good job on my knee. Tore my patella tendon. So I may have seen this guy and passed him on the street at some point. Buckeye Alex says, I think having the conversation about Bo takes away from the victims. Interesting. You'll have to elaborate on that. Because it sounds like, you know, Bo, I don't know, multiple people knew about this, and the people who could have stopped it before he got to the student athletes could have stopped it. That's what I'm getting from all this. If you're new coming in, please like the stream. That helps with the engagement and it helps the channels. All right, we're in double-digit likes now. Also, if you dislike the stream, dislikes help the engagement as well. Okay. The press conference. 2 weeks ago, some of the plaintiffs' attorneys organized a press conference at a Michigan hotel. They presented 3 speakers: Matt Schembechler, son of former Michigan football coach Bo Schembechler, followed by two former football players, Daniel Kwiatkowski and Gilvani Johnson. Is it Gilvani or Gilvani? I don't know. I saw pictures of Bo's son at that press conference, by the way, but I haven't been paying the razor sharp focus that many of you have. So Matt opened by saying the only people who knew the story he was about to tell were his mom, Millie, Bo, Matt's brother Chip, and former athletic director Don Canham. All of them passed away between 15 and 30 years ago. A brief background, Matt's biological father died in the mid-60s. In August of 1968, Bo Schembechler married Millie and adopted her three sons, Chip, Jeff, and Matt. 5 months later, in January of 1969, the new family moved from Oxford, Ohio to Ann Arbor, where Bo started his tenure at the University of Michigan. As a side note, I guess that's what you did back in the day. If a woman already had children, you married her and you took her and her children. We had a discussion about that over on my main channel, and that's a hotbed topic today. Do you take a woman, date a woman who already has children? But Bo, I never knew this. Bo adopted 3 children that weren't his. In 1969, Matt was 10 years old. When he needed a physical to play tackle football at a press conference, Matt said Bo sent him to see Dr. Anderson. In the course of the physical exam, Matt said, what Dr. Anderson did made me uncomfortable. He fondled my genitals. He conducted an invasive rectal exam with his finger. When Matt returned home, he told his mother, who told him he had to tell his father. When Bo returned that day, Matt said he told Bo about his visit to Dr. Anderson, and his mom had instructed, as his mom had instructed. Matt said Bo screamed, "I don't want to hear this. I'm not hearing this. I tried to tell him repeatedly, but my efforts earned me a punch in the chest." Matt said Millie later went over Bo's head, inviting Canham to their home so Matt could tell him what happened. Mr. Canham told my mother, "Okay, I'll handle this, Millie." Matt believed Canham had Anderson fired and Bo had the decision reversed. Bo needed his team doctor and wanted to ensure Anderson remained part of the Michigan team, Matt said, reading from a prepared statement at the press conference. 5 years after the first abuse, Matt said when he was 15, his parents set up another physical with Dr. Anderson. Wow. Anderson groped me once again before I stopped him, Matt said, because it made me feel uncomfortable. Matt added that he had shared this with his brother Chip, about 4 years his senior, who died in 2003, but not his brother Jeff, who is 2 years older, or Shemi, Bo's biological son, who is 10 years younger. Thus, there is no one living to corroborate or refute Matt's account. Matt politely declined my invitation to interview him for this piece. I am hesitant to raise any questions about the testimony of anyone who has the courage to face the media and discuss incredibly painful memories that surely haunt them to this day. But because Matt's charges are so serious, he is the only one to accuse Schembechler of child abuse. We need to take them seriously. With all the witnesses gone, the best we can do is consider relevant information for context. Millie Schembechler was a career nurse from 1945 to 1968, the year she married Bo. After the family moved on to Ann Arbor in January 1969, she and Bo had Shemi the following fall. She volunteered at U of M hospital for many years thereafter. It's not clear why a career nurse would let her new husband, a football coach, set up an appointment for her 10-year-old son with a specialist in internal medicine who worked at University Health Services, designed principally to serve university students and staff, instead of a pediatrician at U of M's new Mott's Children's Hospital. Anderson has started giving physicals for Michigan's athletes on a part-time basis the year before. The head team physician, an official title, was not held by Anderson, but Gerald O'Connor, an orthopedic surgeon who created Michigan's sports medicine clinic in 1964 until he retired in 2000. O'Connor's salary was paid by both the athletic department and Michigan Medicine, whereas Anderson's was paid by University Health Services, his employer. It is entirely possible that by the summer of 1969, Bo Schembechler had not yet met Dr. Anderson. It's also unclear why Bo would think the doctor who had started giving physicals to U of M athletes just 1 year earlier was so important to the football program Bo just inherited that he would punch his son to protect this doctor and then go over the head of his new boss to have that doctor reinstated. It's also unclear why Bo would have more authority than Canham at any point in his career, let alone his first 8 months in town. Bo Schembechler had not been a popular choice to become Michigan's next coach and hadn't yet coached a single game. Why Don Canham would let his unproven football coach override his decisions on medical personnel is another question. In any case, Dr. Anderson was employed by University Health Services and could not be hired or fired by either Canham or Schembechler. Anderson would not transfer his practice to the athletic department's new clinic until 1981, 12 years later. I'm going to take a short break here. Okay, I still got 11 folks watching. Let me see what Wolf says. Wolf says at Buckeye Alex, I don't think the two conversations are mutually exclusive. I think you can acknowledge the victims while demanding answers and accountability. Matt also seemed to suggest that he went to the appointment by himself. I told my mom as soon as I got home, as I was uncomfortable and shaken. My father, now 89, was a pediatrician from 1957 to 2005 with stops at Duke University, a U.S. Army base in Germany, New York Presbyterian, Columbia University, Texas Tech, Butterworth Hospital in Grand Rapids, and the U of M's Mott Children's Hospital, where he worked 32 of his 48 years. He earned emeritus status and now has a lectureship named for him. This week, I asked him if he had ever seen pediatric patients arrive by themselves without a parent. Never, he said. Not once in my 58 years. And unless a patient was in critical condition, I don't think any of those hospitals would have admitted a child without a parent. Even in 1969, parents had to authorize doctors to care for their children. Matt's account of his mother's reaction also raised eyebrows among those who knew her well. I never met her. By all accounts, Millie was fiercely protective of her sons and not afraid to stand up to Bo. Many Michigan football players can tell you the only time they can recall Bo cutting short a team meeting, which were sacrosanct, was when Millie walked in to inform him that he was late for their lunch. To the delight of his players, she was one of the few people to whom Bo consistently deferred. It's also unclear why after Matt told his mom of Dr. Anderson's abuse when he was 10, Millie would set up another appointment with Dr. Anderson 5 years later and apparently have Matt go to the appointment by himself, once again before he'd earned his driver's license. Shemi Schembechler, Matt's younger brother, told ESPN last week his father was as loving a person as you could imagine. Chemi told ESPN that he did not believe Matt's story. Oh boy. I asked Chemi if his father had ever hit him or if he had ever witnessed his father hitting his mother or his brothers. No, he said, never. Matt's older brother, Jeff Schembechler, wrote an open letter to his father, Bo, this week, while not directly addressing Matt's account. Jeff wrote, I can only speak for myself, but I cherished every moment I was able to be with you, and I will always be thrilled and proud that you were my father. However, as Matt said at the press conference, Matt remains the only living witness to his account. There is simply no way to confirm or refute it. Okay, guys, I'm going to see how much longer this one is. Wow. Okay. There are only 2 sections left. So as they say, I'm going to alpha my way through it. I'm going to take a swig of water here. Please keep letting me know what you guys think in the comment section there. This is tricky because, you know, they say that for any story, there are 3 sides. There's this side, and in the middle, there's the truth. It's interesting that both of Bo's, well, it makes sense. Both of Bo's blood sons seem to be coming to his defense. So that makes sense that would happen. But Matt seems to be the only surviving person from that time. So, you know, what he says, you have to go with it. But also, sometimes people remember things in their own way. So there's a lot for the people making decisions on the program and on Bo's legacy and on who was responsible. There's a lot to parse out here and a lot to try to figure out. So let me take a sip of my agua. Okay. I'm going to continue to alpha my way through this one and finish it up. There are only 2 sections left. This one is pretty well written. Some of the blogs I read for the channel, they're missing words and commas and all kinds of things. So John is an experienced, well-established writer. So this is just a longer piece. The players at the press conference. The biggest issue remains the simple fact that 850 some former Michigan students were sexually abused by Anderson. 2 of them followed Matt Schembechler at the press conference. Daniel Kwiatkowski, a former offensive lineman who played from 1977 to 1979, and Gilvani Johnson, who played from 1982 to 86. They were both very powerful, speaking from the heart. Their pain, even years later, was as obvious as their courage. Kwiatkowski recounted the painful ordeal from his freshman year, 1977. I was 1 year old that year. 1 year old that year. I was raped. As far as I was concerned, my freshman year, I was anally penetrated several times. I would say at least 4 or 5 before I grabbed Anderson's wrist and pulled his fingers out of my rectum. At the press conference, Kwiatkowski shared what he had told the Wilmer Hill investigators after a physical exam with Anderson. I went up to Bo after practice and asked him, "What about the fingers in the butt with the doctor?" He told me to toughen up. There was no reason to doubt Kwiatkowski's integrity. He said virtually the same thing to the Wilmer Hill investigators. He had been sexually abused by Anderson, and the university failed to stop it. There were no questions on either front. It's obviously vital that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past and disbelieve survivors, or worse, attack them. If we're trying to determine the truth near as we can, we also need enough space to ask legitimate questions. In this case, trying to determine exactly what Schembechler heard, understood, and might have done or not done about Kwiatkowski's concerns requires knowing exactly what both Kwiatkowski said and Schembechler heard. Unfortunately, expecting survivors to accurately describe conversations decades later is asking a lot. As a journalist, I know how hard it is to recall conversations verbatim. When I taught for 6 summers at Northwestern's Meadow School of Journalism, I would open our first class by providing a short introduction of the course, then give a brief bio and ask the students to give theirs. Then I would ask them to write a 1-page account of what they had just witnessed before I left the room for 10 minutes. As you can imagine, the accounts varied widely from what I'd said to what the color tie I was wearing. A friend of mine at Michigan's law school, Len Niehoff, conducts a similar exercise in his evidence class with similar results. The TV show Brain Games often makes the same point, as do numerous scientific studies. It is very hard to accurately reconstruct conversations from weeks ago, let alone 4 decades. None of this changes the damage done to Kwiatkowski, of course, but it might influence how we assess the conversation that followed. If Schembechler simply heard that a player didn't like the rectal or hernia exam, he might have taken no action. In 1982, when Gilvani Johnson received an abusive examination from Dr. Anderson, he told Schembechler that Anderson had messed with his penis and that he did not agree with the type of physical examination that Dr. Anderson performed. Johnson said Schembechler told him he would look into it, but Johnson never heard anything further about it. A third former player told Wilmer Hale that Dr. Anderson gave him a rectal examination and fondled his testicles during a PPE exam in 1976. The student athlete told Wilmer Hale he informed Coach Schembechler that he did not want to receive any future physicals from Dr. Anderson and that things were going down there that weren't right. According to the student athlete, Mr. Schembechler explained that annual PPEs were required to play football at the university. Another problem, we don't know what Schembechler did after these players approached him. Right now, we know of 4 players who brought their concerns to Schembechler. While what actually happened during many of Dr. Anderson's exams clearly constituted abuse, it may not have been expressed as such and may not have been heard as abuse either. If Bo had asked experts if it was appropriate for doctors to touch the patient's genitals or give rectal exams, they would have most likely have confirmed the procedures were required for adult physicals. Medical textbooks, journal articles, and military protocols at the time described the rectal and hernia examinations as essential procedures for adult patients undergoing both physicals. Dr. Richard D. Judge of the University of Michigan, Dr. George D. Zudema of Johns Hopkins, and Dr. Faith T. Fitzgerald of UC Davis said in their clinical diagnosis, A Physical Approach, edition 1983, in any patient, it is impossible to overemphasize the importance of the rectal examination. This simple and vital procedure is too often passed by because it entails extra effort on the part of the physician and tends to be somewhat disagreeable to the patient. But no gastrointestinal evaluation is complete without it. A doctor in that clinic at the same time confirmed the 2 exams were part of every physical given in the pre-participation exam. Schembechler himself underwent rectal and hernia exams during his 2-year stint in the Army and received similar exams during his annual physicals at Michigan. Of course, the rectal exam may have been standard procedure at the time, but everything else Dr. Anderson did to these patients constituted felonious malpractice and sexual abuse, including performing such exams for entirely unrelated issues. Even the manner Anderson performed required procedures, as described by his many victims, often amounted to criminal sexual conduct. This was Dr. Anderson's evil genius. He could hide behind his white coat and contemporary protocols. All right, there's one more section to go. I'm going to read some of your comments. I'm going to sip on my water, and then I'm going to alpha my way through the final section. Let's see, we're at 1 hour and 23 minutes. My restaurant is going to stay open for another 2.5 hours. Yeah, 2.5 hours. Let's see. Wolf 58 says, when in history of manhood has a grown man made up a story about being sexually abused? If it happens, it's extremely rare. Thomas Orzak says, why did it take Bo 12 years? Why did it take Bo 12 years to win a bowl game? That's not the subject of this, Thomas. And I don't know. Bo did play a conservative style of football. At that time, he was pretty run intensive. I don't know. Let me take a look at the likes here. I know some of my Facebook friends are probably saying, what is he reading and what's he talking about for so long? Because I'm simulcasting this to Facebook. Okay. All right, guys, I'm going to take one more swig here, and then I'm going to alpha my way through the last part of this piece, and then I'll read a few more comments. Please keep commenting there, and then I will conclude this stream. The unfortunate part is, when you send your kid away, and I'm not a parent at this point, but you assume that when you send your child away to a major university with a coach to play a sport, you're basically putting your child in the hands of that institution, the coaching staff, and whoever is running that university. So it's unfortunate that these types of things happened, because you're trusting the values of the staff and faculty at that university. So it sounds like the ball was definitely dropped over a series, over 2 decades, it sounds like. If you're new coming in, please like the stream. Trepicoles says, if Dr. Anderson hid behind his white coat to get away with abuse, I ask, what did the people who hired Anderson to hide behind? Yeah, it seems to me that you should be able to find, if you get rid of one physician, you should be able to find others. I mean, it's not like you can't find other doctors if you knew this stuff was going on. The other thing, this potentially stains the reputation and the history of Don Canham. Don Canham, John U. Bacon has written about Don Canham, and Don Canham was credited with running the athletic department in a very, very masterful way. So Don Canham is highly revered in the history of the Michigan athletics, period. So this potentially stains his legacy as well. And one of Don Canham's, when I think it was End Zone, when John U. Bacon wrote about all of the issues surrounding Dave Brandon and how Dave Brandon ran the athletic department. One of Don Canham's quotes was never turn a 1-day story into a 2-day story. So nip it in the bud and stop it right then and there. So this may definitely stain his reputation as well and his legacy. Okay, I'm going to alpha my way through the last part of this. If you're new coming in, please hit that like. Okay, here we go. The questions. The question is, was the difference communicated to Schembechler in a manner that led him to understand that Dr. Anderson was not examining his players, but violating them? While no one has yet come forward with an eyewitness account or documentation to tell us what Schembechler did or did not do with the information Kwiatkowski and Johnson provided, there may well have been a gap between the abuse Kwiatkowski endured from Dr. Anderson, how it was communicated to Schembechler, and how Schembechler received it. This is not to exonerate Anderson, the University of Michigan, East Hope, Canham, or Schembechler. Far from it. There's no ignoring the hardest, simplest fact of this case. Dr. Anderson's years of abuse represents a gigantic systemic failure of the university, including East Hope's decision not to report Dr. Anderson's abuse to the appropriate authorities. The University of Michigan healthcare system, like most of our institutions, has since added layers of protections, checks and balances, phone numbers to call, and people to talk to prevent anything like this from happening again. But few of those safeguards existed 30, 40, and 50 years ago. If we can't be certain how much Canham or Schembechler knew about Dr. Anderson's abuse, what they comprehended or what they did or did not do about it, we know that hundreds of athletes were abused by Dr. Anderson on every team in the department. Knowingly or not, they failed to protect their athletes from Michigan's own employees. We also know Dr. Anderson's treatment was a running joke among many players, though not among all, John, Vaughn, and others have said. Yet so far, 4 former players have said they talked to Schembechler about it. On that basis alone, we might conclude that players did not feel comfortable bringing the suspicions they readily shared with each other to Schembechler. It seems likely the players might have had difficulty describing what they were enduring beyond their discomfort, and Schembechler might well have had difficulty understanding exactly what it was they were trying to tell him. If so, this communication breakdown helped establish a culture which made it easier for a predator like Anderson to continue abusing the students for decades. It also seems likely that Schembechler, like other U of M coaches and personnel at the time, probably deferred too readily to medical authority and was too reluctant to question if a doctor had violated the law. Unwittingly or not, these factors enabled Anderson to abuse hundreds of students, a tragedy by any standard. If you're in a recruit's living room and you promise his parents you'll keep their son safe, and he gets abused by Dr. Anderson, whether you were aware of it or not, you've not kept your promise. Perhaps that's an impossible standard. Who among us can guarantee anyone's safety? But it's one that Michigan's coaches set for themselves. I have seen many Schembechler defenders say, I could never believe Bo would allow his players to be abused. I understand why they feel this way, but as a journalist, I can't say that. If you show me concrete evidence of almost anything, I have little choice but to believe it. That's what journalists are supposed to do. Follow the evidence wherever it leads without fear or favor. When a journalist is presented with strong evidence, personal ties have to be put aside. But if I've seen evidence of ignorance, neglect, and an enabling culture from Schembechler and Canham, I have seen no evidence of malice, deceit, or a cover-up, or even compelling evidence that Canham or Schembechler fully grasped the gravity of the situation we see so clearly today. In the book Schembechler and I wrote together, chapter 21, don't sleep on it, and don't hold grudges, in which Schembechler says, when you're faced with some personal problem, conventional wisdom says you've got to sleep on it before you do anything rash. But I say that's pointless, because if it really is a problem, you're not going to sleep anyway. That's a good point. So you might as well face the damn thing and get it over with. Many who knew Schembechler better than I did, assistant coaches, secretaries, players, are convinced if he had grasped the situation, he would have had Dr. Anderson fired, of course, without more information we can't know. Don Canham and Marilyn, his wife of 50 years, both went to Dr. Anderson for years and sent their son, Don Jr., a U of M college student, to him as well. It seems unlikely Canham would do so if he suspected Dr. Anderson of abusing his athletes. Likewise, with Schembechler, there is potentially an important difference between not getting it and not caring about it. For what it's worth, the Schembechler I knew consistently made the welfare of his student athletes his top priority. I visited Schembechler's office on a regular basis from 1996 to 2006, the year he died. I saw probably a third of the 660 players he coached at Michigan walk in at some point or other, almost always without an appointment, often years after they played, gained weight, and lost their hair. Yet, whether the visitors were All-Americans, walk-ons, or student trainers, I never saw Bo stumble over a name. Any of his players can confirm this. I heard about Bo flying out to San Francisco in the early 90s to visit Bobby Baumgartner, who played offensive line for Schembechler 20-some years earlier in 1969. Baumgartner had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. Bommy and I had a few laughs reminiscing about everything we'd gone through. We talked all day, Bommy and me, and his teammates, his friends, his family. It got emotional for both of us. You feel powerless. It's so unfair, and there is so little you can do, but you do what you can because you love him. I never said it, but he knew it. They all do. And they know it because it's true. Don't tell me it was about national titles. In the middle of Schembechler's career at Michigan, another player dropped out and returned to New York City, where he contracted HIV, a terminal diagnosis at the time. Bo brought him back to Ann Arbor to visit with him and give him a replacement M ring, which his parents buried with him at his funeral. These stories obviously can't prove what Bo did or did not know when Daniel Kwiatkowski, Gilvani Johnson, or two other players brought their questions about Dr. Anderson to him. Neither can Schembechler's papers. He gave 16 large boxes of those to me a few years before he died, and I found no correspondence with or about Dr. Anderson therein. I gave the papers to his widow, Kathy, who gave them to the University of Michigan's Bentley Historical Library, where former athletic director Don Canham's papers also reside. When the WilmerHale law firm and an Associated Press reporter went through the collections, they found nothing negative about Dr. Anderson. Complicating matters further is another simple truth. Few of the central figures are here to respond, refute, apologize, confess, or clarify. We will likely have to accept that we will never know much of this story with certainty. It is still possible that an eyewitness account or document will surface showing that Schembechler or Canham grasped the gravity of the situation and chose to do nothing about it, or worse, covered it up, which is what documents in other cases have shown. If that happens, I would have no choice but to concede that the two men were not who I thought they were, and I would be compelled to write that. In my recent piece about Fielding Yost's legacy, I included this quote from Oscar Wilde. The truth is rarely pure and never simple. While some truths are self-evident, Dr. Anderson abused hundreds of students, the university failed to stop him, and the damage is deep and broad. Others will be harder to discern with complete confidence. Because the statute of limitations for these cases, which runs only 3 years in the state of Michigan, has long since passed, it's less likely the truth will be determined in the courts with people testifying under oath and cross-examinations, and more likely in the court of public opinion. It is perhaps for this reason that the plaintiff's lawyers have spent far more time discussing Schembechler's potential role in Anderson's long run of abuse than East Hope's failure to stop Anderson. Remarkably, the university could probably walk away without paying the survivors anything and suffer no legal consequences. But you can be legally right and ethically wrong, which is exactly what that would be. My sources tell me the university has offered about $100,000 per survivor, or about $90 million total, to the plaintiff's attorneys who have so far rejected the offer. But all these questions aside, when I consider Dr. Anderson and the broad ripples of his abuse, what I feel most is a heavy sadness. Dr. Anderson was evil. The university failed to protect its students. Hundreds of students suffered, and those are very hard truths. So everyone, that was Dr. Anderson's abuse and U of M athletics, what we know and don't know. That was written by John U. Bacon, who is considered to be the official historian of Michigan football and other parts of Michigan athletics. John wrote a book about Bo and other books about the program. And so I'm sure this was painful for him to, chronicle and also to witness himself, because these guys, Bo, the coaches that coached under Bo, the players who were there, Don Canham, all these guys are basically lionized. And these athletic departments at these schools, at these Power 5 schools, these are all businesses. And, so there's the potential for Schembechler's likeness to be taken off of the program and off of, anything related to athletics at the school. I haven't heard anything about that yet. And it's tough to know what he knew. Did he know this stuff and did he just kind of turn a blind eye, or did he just tell his players to deal with it? I don't know. What should be done about it? I mean, what can be done at this point? Let's see. Wolf says, and I'm going to shut this down soon, guys, because I want to get moving. The issue of accountability extends beyond Bo or the athletic director. it extends to assistant coaches, including Jack Harbaugh, trainers, or other medical staff and administrators. Speaking of Jack Harbaugh, the loyalty to Bo from his assistants and players who, I will say, who did not endure this, the support for him has been pretty strong. Again, there are numerous articles below this stream, and Jack Harbaugh, since you mentioned him, Wolf, has been one of the protectors of Bo and his legacy throughout all of this. So there are numerous people who have stepped up and said, that's not Bo. Bo would not have let that have gone on. And basically, you can't tear Bo down because of these allegations. And you can't tear Bo down because of what this Dr. Anderson did. So I think the fan base and the family is very much split on what to do about this. I will obviously keep my eye on what's going on. As I stated, Bo's fingerprints and image is synonymous with the athletic department and the football program. And it would be interesting to see him removed completely from the program. And just even with him gone, when you go to the games now, his presence is still there. They still play the team speech. They still show the footage of him giving that speech. If you go over to the Michigan podcast hosted by Steve Dace, well, he was playing the team speech in his intro. But will all of that continue? I don't know. Wolf says, that was a well-written article. I can't disagree with anything he said. Yep, John U. Bacon, fair and balanced. I see some new people have come in. Please like the stream. That was a long piece that I just read for the audience and for the channel. So if you're just coming in, you can watch it on the playback. You might want to watch it in bits and pieces. I had to take breaks because when you start reading something that's that long, your mouth starts to dry out, and some of the words start looking different than what they really are. So you might want to watch this on the playback and watch it in bits and pieces. So guys, I think I'm going to stop this here. Again, I know the folks on Facebook are probably looking and saying, what's he talking about? What's he reading about? But I'm going to stop this here so I can go and enjoy my Friday evening. I want to thank everyone who came into the stream and at least listened for a little while. And I want to thank all of you, like you, Wolf, who listened to the whole thing. I don't know how it is listening to me read for an hour and a half. So Trepicole says, Bo supporters seem to feel that Bo could do no wrong, as if he was a perfect human being. That's what irritates me. It's not reality for any of us. Nope. None of us are infallible. None of us are perfect. Galen Trim, I'm not familiar with that name. Thank you for stopping through. He says, thank you. And Wolf58 gives a thumbs up. So again, if you're just coming in, I just read an article, an essay or an account of this by John U. Bacon. It's a lengthy piece. It's in the description box below. For those of you unfamiliar, that's John. But that piece is below this stream, which will soon be a video, along with a bunch of other articles you can read for yourself if you're interested in learning more about this. Though I suspect most of you have been keeping up on this pretty closely. All right, everyone. Once again, tomorrow I am hosting an open basketball hangout here. I'm going to just discuss some updates on the conference finals and what's new in terms of NBA news. I think Detroit, since we're talking about Michigan, I think the Detroit Pistons got the number one pick in the draft lottery. And then I'm going to throw the link in the chat and just let it keep going. You know, people are going to probably want to talk about who the GOAT is. People are probably going to rejoice that the Brooklyn Nets got eliminated. People are probably going to predict who the champion's going to be. It's going to be, I'm going to let it be a free-for-all. So I know the main course over here is Michigan football, to some degree Ohio State football, because you can't talk about Michigan football without talking about Ohio State football and Big Ten football. But I'm gradually trying to introduce some other things, such as basketball and the NFL season is almost here. So I'm going to do some Buffalo Bills stuff as well, since I'm a Buffalo Bills native. Galen Trim says, I'm a Buckeye, but I respect Michigan. Thank you, Galen. Not all the Buckeye fans are bad people. So, all right, everyone. I will be thinking about this as I eat my Friday dinner and sip my Cabernet Sauvignon. If you're watching this on the playback, please like this stream/video. Please share it and please subscribe to my channel. Thank you all for watching. Go blue. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you next time. Remember, I'm going to give you one Bo quote, one that I live by. Early is on time. So take care, everyone. I will talk to you the next time. All right, bye-bye.